Good morning, everybody. It's Kim from Patriot Garden, and today it's all about roots. Roots have three main jobs. The first job is obviously to anchor the plant to the ground. The second job is to store any unused sugars that the leaves produce from photosynthesis as starches, and they store it until the leaves and the plant need it, and then it releases it again as sugars. And the third job is to act like a giant straw and just suck up all the water and the nutrients from the soil. Nitrogen and phosphorus are very important for roots to stay nice and healthy, which is why from the very beginning of your seedling's life, when those two first true leaves start to appear, it is important to start giving those plants a little bit of a natural water-soluble fertilizer. We talked about this in the last video, half strength, quarter strength of just a general NPK, N meaning nitrogen, P meaning phosphorus, and K meaning potassium, to those plants so that they can begin right away to develop really good root system. Roots also need a soil medium that they can travel through. If the soil is too compacted, if it's too heavy and the roots can't move, especially with root vegetables, you're not going to get a very healthy root system. And in root vegetables, you're not going to get a really long carrot or a really fat beet if your soil is too heavy. So now how do you know if your roots are healthy? Well, I took apart this tomato plant to show you a small problem here. This clump of tomatoes that I pulled out of a pot did not have a very healthy root system. All of the roots were in this first inch and a half of soil. It didn't go down into the pot, which told me a couple of things. Number one, they may have been a little too overcrowded. I did some multi-sowing of my tomatoes, and most of them turned out okay, but I put too many seeds in this pot. And I probably watered too much, and I watered these from above because they were so crowded in an area. So because I didn't water them from below, it didn't encourage the roots to go down. I made some mistakes with these tomatoes. I think they're still salvageable. I'm going to pull them apart and put them in other pots, and I think they'll be okay. Now this zinnia has a much better root system. You can see that it went all the way down the pot. There are plenty of roots for this plant. It was only planted with one other zinnia that I thinned out pretty early on. So this root system looks pretty healthy. I can also tell by the plant that the root system is healthy. You can look to see if your roots are healthy, but what if the plant is in the ground? How do you know if the roots are healthy? Well, you look at the leaves. If the roots are waterlogged, if they're sitting in too much water and they shouldn't be, the leaves will start to yellow. If the roots are struggling because there's not enough water in the soil, the leaves of your plant, especially tomatoes, will begin to curl up. It doesn't mean that they're dead. It doesn't mean that they won't survive and bounce back and be fine, but they are telling you that they need something different. Some plants have a very shallow root system, like lettuces or brassicas. Some plants have a very deep root system, like carrots, for instance, or tomatoes. The different types of roots mean that you're going to water them in a different way. So if you have very shallow rooted plants like lettuces and brassicas, you don't want the top little bit of soil to get bone dry, because that's where the roots are living. So you want it to be an evenly moist situation, not overly watered, but certainly moist and never bone dry for too long. With tomatoes and other deep-rooted vegetables and flowers, it's kind of important to water deeply less often. So instead of watering the surface twice a day or every day, it's probably a good idea to really soak the ground, water it deeply, and then let it be for a day. That encourages the roots to reach down for the water instead of just being comfortable sitting up by the surface. Roots not only need water, they also need oxygen. The soil has to have a really good balance of water and oxygen. If you're overwatering and those leaves are turning yellow, it could be a sign that the soil has become what's called anaerobic, which means it is so waterlogged that the plant cannot get any oxygen. So it's really important to take the cue from the plant, especially after you've transplanted, when you can't actually see the root system. This zinnia was also telling me that it was time for it to go into a bigger pot. When the roots have completely taken over the plug and are all the way to the bottom of the container, leaving those roots in that cramped situation is not a good thing. You need to put it in the next size up container so that the roots can continue to grow. When you transplant this, you want to make sure that the hole in the garden that you're digging is big enough to accept this entire thing. You don't want to dig a small hole or pack in those roots, especially if maybe the soil under the first 6 or 7 inches is not really loose and fluffy. So make sure that the soil around it is amended so that it's fluffy, and certainly make sure that it's big enough so that those roots can continue to grow. There's one more consideration for roots. In nature, roots coincide with a fungi called a mycorrhizal fungi. And what that fungi does is it attaches itself to the roots of, say, trees or other woody plants, and they create a symbiotic relationship. The roots of the trees help to feed the mycorrhizal fungi, and the mycorrhizal fungi help to attract nutrients for the roots to send up to the plant. So I'm going to be trying a new product this year, and we'll see how it goes. It's called Mycos. I put the link down below for you if you'd like to give it a try. It's a mycorrhizal inoculant that you sprinkle either in the hole in which you are transplanting, or you could sprinkle right onto the roots of your plant, just a little bit of it before you transplant it. It has to come into contact with the roots to work. So I put it in with my brassicas you saw earlier in the video. I was planting my cabbages. So I'm going to give this a try, and I'll let you know how it goes. And if you're interested, again, there's a link down below. Okay, everybody, that's it for today. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. If this video was helpful for you, please make sure that you hit that subscribe button and the like button. That would be very helpful. And happy gardening.